Children in hotels, refugees in Canada asking to return to Jordan. Has the Trudeau government bitten off more than it can chew? Today on Context, is it time for a refugee reality check? Well, this is our reality check on refugees at Context. Please welcome the Saloom family. This is a family from Homs, Syria, and this studio audience was talking with us about refugees a long time ago, over 15 months ago, and some of our members in that audience insisted that we hear about your story, that we work to get you over here, and all we could do was say, there's somebody watching TV who can afford to bring you over, and there's a church here that has a good, warm heart. Yeah. So welcome to Context. This is your gang. This is part of what makes it happen.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
You know, I want to talk about homes.
Yeah.
You had over 200 bombs drop over your home.
Yeah,
including one right over your room, Melina, right?
Yes, it's right.
How does peace feel now in Canada?
Like a dream. We are happy here. Just we feel like home because from the first moment we arrived, there is people waiting us. Almost when you arrive, there is your family waiting you. But here, we find also family, not our family, but a big family. I can't explain how was our feeling, because when you see people waiting you with a lot of flowers and toys, and the special thing is a smile. We cannot forget this smile.
Let's bring that smiling guy on. Okay, we've got Pastor Aaron here somewhere, I know, in the audience. And just pass that over to Nadal there for a second. Okay, so this is what it takes. This is a little, Ancaster Village Church is not very big. Your word of encouragement to churches that might feel like, or any community group, that this is not really possible.
Yeah, I would say take the risk and take the step and give it a shot. Like you said, we're 60 people. This is our third full year in existence. We knew about the situation that was happening because of the conflict there, and we said, we have to do something.
And you don't even have a building of your own as a church. You borrow the church's, the town's community hall. All right, this is wonderful. We're going to keep watching how you progress. And you want a job, don't you?
Yeah.
You were kind of like the #2 guy for a confectionery company.
Yeah.
And now they're making you learn English, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, all the best in finishing that up. And girls, all the best at school, okay? Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. Well, we're going to begin with Canada's immigration minister. He's going to give us his reality check to some of the country's most pressing questions at a community forum.
Phase one, the big thing was to get them from there to here. And as you know, there was quite a lot of fuss in the media about numbers and would we make the numbers or would we not make the numbers. We have said all along that it is way more important to do it right than to do it fast.
So a lot of the families perhaps don't realize actually what they're asking for. A lot of these government-assisted refugee families are quite large. All right, 6.2 to 6.5% size is the norm. That's the average size. Second to that, the government has a duty of care for the government-assisted refugees. And what we're concerned about by putting them in a very generous offer from a privately sponsored refugee group is that perhaps that government-assisted family goes there for 4, 5, or 6, or maybe a week. Then their privately sponsored refugee family is available. Now we have to displace the government-assisted to another location. And when you consider what they've gone through in the conflict, the uprooting, some of these folks have been in refugee camps or living on the streets or living hand in mouth for years. To be able to put them in a permanent location versus a couple of spots, I think most people would agree that that would be the preferred course of action.
You have to appreciate, again, through the government-assisted refugees, they will get funding for a year. So they get funding that's equivalent to social assistance. And so they're going to be able to use that money to find some of them their own accommodation, or again, with the help of people within various communities across Canada. But as the minister made very clear, if it's a social housing unit that ultimately one wants to end up with, that they will have to follow the process like everyone else does. And there are no units available. I mean, in the sense when they do become available, we've got a long waiting list.
Well, joining us now is Jerry Mills, the Executive Director of Resettlement Services in Nova Scotia. You've done 359 families in 1 month in a province, 359 refugees, when you usually only do 200 in a whole year. How are you keeping up?
I think that 359 was probably a few days ago. We now have 444. So we have 444 government-assisted refugees who have arrived in the last month. We're 1 month through, halfway through the 2 months, to bring in 750. And we're doing well, really well, I would say.
So how are you doing really well in taking 400 people like...
It's not without its challenges. It's not. This is a massive humanitarian effort. It's a massive operation to bring in people and to bring that number of people into a small place like Nova Scotia. But the community wanted this. The province wanted it. The federal, provincial, municipal governments wanted this. And the communities have stepped up to the plate.
And their families are bigger than our Canadian families, at least the ones you're receiving in Nova Scotia. Tell us about this.
Yeah, they are. They can be 10, 11, 12, so 8, 9, 10 children. But we're seeing that as a great opportunity for us. You know, many of the children are young as well. We're surprised at the age of the children. So right now, I think we have something like over 120, 130 under fives. And then not so many of the older children, 12 to 18. We probably only have about 30 to 40 of those older children. So it's really quite surprising. And it's a joy. It's busy.
I hear the stories, though, of the hotels, kids without shoes, not enough proper clothing for these kind of winter, people even wanting to be returned. You're not having any of that in Nova Scotia?
When we haven't seen people yet who want to return, no. And in terms of the clothing, no. You know, if they come with limited clothing, we had a huge donation drive before people arrived, and we have a donation centre which is jam-packed full of clothes and household items, and we just bring clothes down from there. And then eventually, after a few days, we actually take the refugees up to the donation centre to take whatever they want. Okay, 400 new faces there in Nova Scotia. What will jobs be like for those households? How will they find work? We haven't done a real needs assessment on the folks yet, but you know, we've done a cursory one. So we're seeing people like cooks and truck drivers, some university professors, teachers. So the whole spectrum of jobs, and you know, it's one by one. You know, one person needs one job, but they want the right job, and we want them to have the right job. So we'll start working. Language is probably less English than we thought at first it would be, but we already have people doing language assessments, and we'll get them into language training and then out into the workforce. I think probably the language and workforce integration will probably go hand in hand. So we'll be doing a lot more language training in the workforce once people get jobs. You're not deterred. No, I'm not. Okay. Jerry Mills, thank you so much for joining us there in Halifax. That was Jerry Mills, Executive Director of Resettlement Services in Nova Scotia. She joined us from the CBC studios in Halifax. Over 30 years ago, Canada airlifted 60,000 refugees from Vietnam. Here to talk about her experiences then and now is the Executive Director of the Centre for Immigrants and Community Services. Please welcome Moy Wong Tam to Context. Hello, Moy. Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is so cool, because you must have been just a kid when you were working with the boat people coming over.
I was a student at the time, and I didn't have money to sponsor anyone. But there was a groundswell of goodwill and compassion from Canadians. So
It's like we have Syrian Lifeline now,
exactly.
then it was Vietnamese
Yes,
Lifeline.
so it was Operation Lifeline. So I was acting as an interpreter to a father and son and two sisters from Laos, the father and son from Vietnam. So different people got involved in different ways.
What are the lessons that you learned back then that you're now still using in this new Lifeline Syria effort?
I think what we realize is that there is a lot of goodwill in the community. I think that's what makes Canadians who they are. So in community, we see that there are many groups who have organized and prepare to welcome their families. So there's private sponsorships. And we're very proud to learn that Canada is the only country in the world that actually has private sponsorships.
Wow.
Other countries only have government-sponsored refugees.
Okay, let's talk about housing because it is a crisis. Like in Markham alone, where you're from, there's 10,000 on the waiting list for regular social assistance housing. Now, with our refugees coming, where are we going to put them permanently?
I think necessity is the mother of invention. I'm sure people will come up with ingenious ways of housing people. Many of us do have fairly large homes, bigger than we need, really.
And we think we should figure it out.
Exactly. I think people will find ways to accommodate that if governments and private sector and community members are willing to sit down and work out a solution. I'm sure a solution can be found. Our organization, CICS, Center for Immigrant and Community Services, we, like many other organizations, as well as the Welcome Centers in York Region, we look after settlement services, language training, specialized program for employment supports, accreditation to help people get a job, get language training, and so on. And we do encourage people to get language training early on because we've seen refugees or newcomers who started working right away, and then 20 years down the road, they're still in a dead-end job. So we prefer that people get their help early on and get established.
And of all of the needs that are on your list, what is the most urgent for ordinary Canadians to be helping out with?
We're in it for the long haul, so they can relax and just wait and get to understand the resources that are in the community now. They can, so that when their families come, they know exactly where to get help for them.
Okay. Well, Mui Wong Tam, thank you very much for taking time to be with us today. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Before we go to break, I'd like you to take a look at this clip. Minh Man was one of the Vietnamese boat people who arrived in the 80s, and he spoke at the Markham Refugee Summit. Think of it, 35 years from now, we could be hearing similar stories from the refugees coming over today and tomorrow and next week. Listen to this.
I'm very fortunate. By the time I finished school in BC, I finished in BCIT, I couldn't find a job. I dropped to see what's happening in 1987. I found my job the next day. And I'm working since then, 1987, not unemployed one day. All these taxes all along, like you folks. But I got all these privilege in Canada. I got all these nice people here, very fortunate. God bless me all along. This is my first opportunity to say thank you, Canada. Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone here, to have me here. Thank you. And I'm very grateful to be Canadian. Thank you.
What an amazing story. And Minh Man is here in our audience, and he brought his family. Minh, why was it important for you to show up at a Syrian refugee summit?
Oh, I was so lucky to get invited by the mayor of Markham. I did a lot of community work, so everyone recognized me. So I just want to spread my word to the community. I've been here almost 40 years. I came in 1981, and I'm so fortunate that Canada has accepted me. And I'm so fortunate that I love Canadian. They have all smile than anybody else in the world. Maybe presently that everybody think refugees are taking Canadian money, but do look at the future, long investment. Like I did, I've been working 30 years without unemployed.
And helping pay all those taxes that kept the
Yes.
city council going.
Yes.
Thank you
And
for
I
bringing your
I
family.
did a lot of community work as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing
thank
your family. What a beautiful story. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you.
Well, here's Sheldon with a question for you at home.
Well, you've heard the facts. What do you think about the refugee rush? Here's the question we want answers. Do you think the government should be asking Canadians, that's you and me, to help out with new refugees? Respond on Facebook, Twitter, or give us a call. I'll be going through your responses and may have some of my own in the future, so stay tuned for that.
Still to come, we'll hear from a community that has single-handedly brought more than 800 refugees into Canada and are expecting even more later this month. Stay with us. Well, if you, like me, think one refugee family is a lot to commit to, Apkar Marakian led the community effort to bring in 900 refugees in just 1 month. Help me welcome him to Context, please. Wow. I want to start here because 100 years ago, Canada wasn't so open to the Armenian people who needed to come here after the genocide. We only took in 109 Armenian refugees. 1 million and more died in that genocide. What is motivating you?
We would like to continue the tradition that Canada has started bringing refugees. And people in Aleppo or in Syria were dire need of any kind of help. They fled to the countries like Lebanon, Turkey, Jordan, far away to Egypt, and we were getting daily calls that they need to come to Canada because they have heard that Canada has opened the doors for the refugees.
What stories did your Armenian brothers and sisters in Aleppo and beyond tell you?
They cannot get daily water, daily electricity, daily bread. So they were suffering from all kinds of necessities that we take for granted in Canada. Children go out and by pairs, maybe they return one only. Because of bombing, I met a refugee. Actually, we call them newcomers. Refugee is somewhat not good.
You want us to call your Armenian newcomers, okay.
This week, actually, he was introducing himself to me, and we were writing down all his particulars. And he had a child next to him. And I said, "Where is your wife?" And he said, "My wife is not here now." In the meantime, the child went away. And he came close to me and he said, "You know, my wife and his sister was killed in front of the church 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. Now, I haven't told anything to my son. He doesn't still know that his mother has died a year ago."
And here they are in Canada.
And here they are in Canada. And we got over 900 refugees in 3 weeks' time, 4 weeks' time.
Let me just unpack this a little bit, because this began a few years ago. Jason Kenney challenged you, hey, you should get a sponsorship agreement. You got all your paperwork done in 2010, 2012, and now, bang, in 1 month, just over December, 900 come, 1,100 have already been here. We got to go to your committee here. Marianne, what kind of support do you need to handle 900 refugees in 1 month alone? What's going on?
You would be amazed at how our community has mobilized and stood up and come forward to support this effort. Everybody wears multiple hats. If it's not filling out paperwork, it's driving around and collecting furniture and clothes drop-offs and necessities for
volunteers?
homes. They're all volunteers. Today I do this, tomorrow I do that, and there's no questions asked. It's a humanitarian effort. And like Apgar said, it really does go back to our roots. It's because, in my case, my father came through in a very similar process. We escaped genocide, we came here, somebody opened their house, their home to us.
And so
it's a pay it forward effort on my behalf.
Apgar, help me understand how your Christian faith is part of this.
The first plane that came down, we were at the hotel where the newcomers were located. Anyway, we picked them up, and on the way to the community center, they were telling us, we should go to church now. The first stop was at the church. They came down, and the priest prayed, and they said, "Oh, thank you, God, that we are now in safety country."
Wow, this is amazing. And I want to turn to another group in our audience here. We've got, there must be something going on in Markham. I don't know if it's the water you guys have there, but Father Dominique, tell us a little bit about why the teachings of Jesus motivated your church to care for refugees.
Yeah, if we start with the teachings of Jesus, he leaves us with this, what he calls the great commandment, to love God with all your heart, your mind, and your soul, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And so it's that basic commandment to go and love, to love our neighbor. And in fact, Jesus goes one step farther and says, we can love him in our neighbor. And so in Matthew 25, for example, when that group is asking Jesus, well, where were you when we were helping people? And he said, I was in those people who were in prison. I was that person who was naked and needed clothing. I was that person who was thirsty and needed water. I was that person who was hungry and needed food. When you reached out to that person, you were loving me. And so we work from that basic fundamental ethic and commandment to love.
You've got some of your sponsoring committee with you. What happens spiritually when you get involved in this kind of sacrifice?
I think spiritually it galvanizes us and it draws us together in a way that it kind of heightens that sense of us being together, gathered around belief and trying to follow the teachings of Jesus. It gives us a deeper sense of purpose, and it reminds us why we are followers of Jesus. That our faith has to be lived out in concrete actions.
All right, thank you. And Apgar, we're going to close this with you because it's pretty astonishing what's happening with your communities in Markham. And to see you're still, now after having 1,100, you're still expecting more.
Actually, we're expecting 680 only in February.
Okay. Give us your advice for some of us who feel a little overwhelmed and bothered by the refugee need.
Well, the belief in God, that whatever you're doing, it's a challenge. And God is going to help us. We know that we're going to get all the refugees into a safe home, God willing, by the help of all the Canadians here. We will be doing that. We have taken the challenge of Mr. Trudeau, who threw the gloves there saying, I will get 25,000. We will do that.
All right. Apgar Marikian and Father Dominique Barber, part of St. Patrick's Catholic Parish in Markham. For all of us here at Context, thank you both.
Thank you.
Coming up, understanding the expectations of Christian faith in the face of crisis. staggering reality that 60 million people are looking for permanent homes in the refugee and migrant dilemma of 2016 is overwhelming. And into the need, here is something that can anchor us. Responding to the global crisis is God's idea. The Bible says that before the throne of God will stand a great multitude that no one can count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language. They will be standing before the throne of God, shouting, "Salvation belongs to our God." That's a Revelation 7, verse 9. And it's a reminder that God is the originator of equal opportunity access to salvation, and that the great diversity of our lives and our locations has been God's idea. Every nation, every tribe, people, every language are from the creation of God. And it is in that where we have our commonality. And it is in that story of our origin in God that we find our ethic to care. I think we're just getting started on this refugee crisis, so let's keep caring. We've left links up to the agencies we're working with to sponsor, and there's lots more connections on there on the website on how you can help and learn more about the stories that you heard today. It takes more than compassion. It's going to take stubbornness, flexibility, perseverance, and much imagination to care. So let's dig in on the refugee need. For all of us, I'm Lorna Duick. Thank you for watching. Join us next week as we explore life beyond the headlines.
Hi, I'm Jeff Grunwald, President of Media Voice Generation, the charitable organization that produces Context with Lorna Duick. We strive to bring you news and current affairs stories from a Christian perspective.
The French people have given up on the option of the church and the option of God as being relevant in their lives.
The critical plight of refugees.
More than 3,000 people have been killed on the way to Europe only this year.
And the controversy around climate change.
And we've been operating as a global society on the premise that some people just have to be sacrificed if we want to have this kind of energy.
You can find us online with special features and commentary on our website, on our Facebook page, on Twitter, and on YouTube. I'm asking you to make a one-time gift or become a monthly supporter. Help ensure that we can continue to bring you more stories that reveal Christ and show God at work in the world. If you believe Context is worth every minute, then we need your support.